Socrates lived frugally, observing the Athenian craftsmen and using them to illustrate his theories. The shoemaker had the skill to make shoes, so the politician should have the skill to practice justice, truth, and statecraft. Sadly, this was often not the case. Socrates concluded that men act foolishly and wickedly because they don't know what's best for them, whilst the good person never knowingly does wrong. Socrates became a thorn in the flesh of the establishment, criticizing them for their amateurism and self-interest, like some Old Testament prophet. There was certainly something of the monk about him. He taught that men should avoid the material pleasures of the world and think of their souls. Perhaps it isn't surprising that in 399 BC he was charged with impiety and corrupting the youth of Athens, and was sentenced to commit suicide by drinking hemlock. He remained calm and controlled to the end. Either death is annihilation, and the dead have no consciousness of anything, or, as we are told, it is really a change, a migration of the soul from this place to another. Plato believed that people were too ready to accept things at their face value. One cannot say whether a person's actions are good or bad until one defines the good. Laws cannot be called just or unjust until one defines justice. This led Plato to formulate a theory of forms and ideas. Plato, like Pythagoras, believed in man's immortal soul. He set out his theories of the soul in his book Phaedo. In it, he records Socrates' last day on earth. Socrates is asked how we acquire knowledge. Don't you think that the person who is likely to succeed in this attempt most perfectly is the one who approaches each object, as far as possible, with the unaided intellect, without taking account of any sense of sight in his thinking, or dragging any other sense into his reckoning? Plato held that, at birth, the soul forgot its knowledge of such absolutes as the good and the beautiful. Education was a means of helping the soul to remember them. Plato often crossed swords with the sophists. They taught a form of moral relativism. A thing could be either good or bad, depending upon the circumstances. Plato believed the good was absolute. He also had revolutionary ideas on creation. The earth, he believed, had been made by the All-Creator, who embodies both good and reason. The Creator, like the forms, is uncreated, unchanging, and real. During Plato's long life, the power of Athens as a city-state began to wane as a result of the Peloponnesian War. Democracy collapsed, and power passed into the hands of a few aristocrats known as the 30. Plato left the city and traveled to Egypt, Syracuse, and southern Italy. It was during this later period that he wrote the Laws. Hence our epidemics of youthful irreligion, as though there were no gods such as the law enjoins us to believe in. He acknowledges the influence of Socrates on his beliefs, but towards the end of his life, he began to have doubts about his earlier theories on forms. Today, Plato's views on the state seem too authoritarian, with no opportunity for social mobility and education restricted to the selected few. Perhaps this is time's revenge, for Plato always considered time to be life's great enemy. On the more practical level, Aristotle was interested in ethics and politics. He believed in the concept of the good, which he defined as that at which all things aim. The function of the good man could be equated with an activity of soul which follows a rational principle and is carried out in accordance with goodness or virtue. So happiness is an activity, not a state or disposition. In his ethics, Aristotle also advocates the mean, the middle course that avoids extremes. The man who shuns and fears everything and can stand up to nothing becomes a coward. The man who is afraid of nothing at all, but marches up to every danger, is foolhardy. Humankind was not self-sufficient. Male and female were united in the family. Families were integrated in the community, and the community in the state. He also accepted slavery, though slaves should be drawn from foreigners and barbarians. Like Plato's ideal republic, Aristotle's had its own fixed hierarchy, with no room for social mobility. But it was less authoritarian.